Board games, board games, it's what I'm talking about. Board games, board games, I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing, and now I'm going to talk about podcasts. It's not going to happen particularly fast, but maybe faster than usual. I'll try and keep most of this show topical. We'll talk about tabletop game blogs and tabletop inquisition. Those are two things made by two people in a position where they decided to team up. And the Mind Games podcast and the Offline Gamer. I'm biased about most things on this list. Anyway, this song is terrible, but still I persist. Board games and board game podcast is what I'm talking about. Board games and board game podcasts. I'm not gonna shout. So, hello and good morning. Morning, Rob. Yeah, you saw me struggling with that rhyme. Yep. There we go. But yep, I might even do a wee rhyme for each of these people because why not? Today it is another episode of Busy Beats and Board Game Bladder. Back in the day, I thought I was going to change the title every 100 episodes. I thought it was maybe going to be at some point Bez's Better Board Game Bladder, and then the best Bezzy Board Game Bladder, and then maybe when I go to Bangkok, maybe it's the Bezzy Bangkok Board Game Bladder. But I quite like this. I feel like this is finally, after 200 and so many episodes, I feel like I finally came across a title which I like, because I am Bez. I blather about board games, although there are lots of video games and other sorts of games, and sometimes I blather about comics and the nature of reviews and all sorts of things. But, we've got a few beats because of my vocal singing. And so, yeah, it is the Bezzy Beats and Board Game Bladder. And I'm thinking of starting a new show, which is going to be at most once a week. And it might be at least once a month, let's say, where I have people that I especially want. It's by special, it's basically people that, okay, there's no way that we could get them on at 10 a.m. and because of time zones or whatever. But that could be the bonus, Busy Beats and Board Game Bladder. But anyway, that's all aside. Today, what I'm going to be doing is reviewing podcast Tabletop Games blog by Oliver Kin, I want to say. Tabletop Inquisition by Oliver Kin and Antoinette Mason. The Mind Games podcast by Pix. Yeah, I wish people would say their names more often. The Offline Gamer by Matt and Ray. Matt, I had Matt on yesterday. Think Like a Game Designer, where Justin Gary interviews a whole bunch of people, and We're Not Wizards, nominally by Richard Simpson. Yeah, sorry, Mind Games podcast. I really should have taken notes. But yeah, so that is what's going on today. And I also thought that at some point, I'm probably going to talk about the nature of obviousness versus utility. I especially was thinking about this, given the Tabletop Games blog, because Oliver doesn't say anything really fresh or new, but says it so eloquently. And sometimes it's like, whoa, I'm sure I was thinking that my whole life, but you've just put it so well. And yeah, you know what? That's absolutely right. And Oliver doesn't be... Anyway, I'll get into that in a minute. And I might also talk a wee bit about this one. It's nothing to do with board games, except that I'm a board game designer. And so Tony Boydell would have you believe that literally anything I talk about is about board games by definition. But I want to talk about this book, and there will be just a bit of blethering along the way. And Rob, if you can delete that wee robots, that would be awesome. Oh, thank you very much, Rob. I just signed into Twitch and you've already done it. Thank you. You are awesome. So let's talk about recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. So, what have I been up to in the past day? Because I just talk about what. So, things I've been doing. I did manage to send out a Kickstarter update. I basically explained in summary why it's taking so long, and I rambled a bit, and I gave a few pictures. And yeah, if you've backed Categorical, then you should have already gotten an update in your email. I also sent out a mass email, so if you're part of my mailing list, you should have also gotten an email from me yesterday. The mass email was about the LDEC design contest. It had wee pictures of Alex and Xate. It had exclusive pictures of Xate, I might say. But I mean, I'm fairly sure it's not exclusive, but just I'd never seen it before. But yeah, that was work that I felt accomplished for having done. I was doing a wee bit more reading on certain designers who might be under the spotlight, and I'm kind of reading through, and it's like, I'll maybe talk about that. I'm still going through a very long BGG thread, and I feel like I need to see all the responses to be able to. But I'm not going to say anything more about that. Games played. We didn't play any games yesterday, sadly. I did eat some delicious chorește gorme sabzi, which is, it was chorește carafs, which is celery chorește, but it was made by my mum with a bit of rhubarb in it. That was delicious. And so, yeah, lots of love to Parents One there. And what else? Yeah, did a wee bit of watching a film together. We watched a good chunk of Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull. Oliver Kin says Rob is also one of the most lovely and positive people out there. I would agree with that. Oh, it snowed here overnight. We had about 2 to 3 centimeters of snow. It stopped falling now. Wow, whilst I've been here, it's never been proper 2 to 3 centimeters. Yeah, I think we had that a few times. I think we had about that much. Chorește carafs. I will write it in the comments. Chorește carafs. So chorește means dish or stew or curry. Chorește is normally, it's cooked in a stew style way. You've got chorește bodem, which means aubergine chorește. Chorește carafs, which carafs means celery. Chorește lubio would mean bean chorește. And chorește gorme sabzi would be I don't know what gourmet means, but sabzi means greens. And so means of. And so, yeah, hopefully that makes sense. And hello, CD. It says, lovely to see you. Bought some lovely downlights. So downlights, is that like things in the cabinets that go down? To finish off my bathroom renovation. Nice. So that sounds really good. So yeah, if you've got any other recent highlights, then feel free to share. And otherwise, I'm going to talk about a brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? Okay, I'm just looking around as I often do. I want to talk about spoons with long handles. Now, I think that this is quite commonly called, depending on where you buy it from, it might be called a jam spoon or a latte spoon. If you've got a tall cup, a spoon with long handles, boom, it doesn't sink into the cup, it's just useful. If you've got a big pot, hey, spoon with long handles, it lets you scoop out things from the bottom of the jar, boom, useful. If you've got a small pie, spoon with long handle, it makes you feel fancy. That's a nice thing about a spoon with a long handle. It kind of makes you feel a little bit fancier. And so that's why today's brilliant thing is spoons with long handles. And so, yeah. Apparently it's above mirror. Most of them shine in your face. So we've got some that shine up and down the wall and not in your face. Okay. I feel like so down the wall, do you mean like along the wall, like rather than down the wall? But yeah, I mean, I hope that you come up with a bathroom that you're happy with. And exactly, brilliant thing. Long handled spoons, that is where it's at. Boom. Yeah, down towards the mirror. I get it. Nice. So, yeah, if you have any questionably quick questions, feel free to chuck them in. If you don't, that is totally okay. And throughout this entire show, feel free to comment, ask questions, thumb like follow. If you are asking anything that isn't relevant to the podcast that I'm talking about, then I might do it once I've taken the banner off. Otherwise, if you ask anything about the podcast and if you have the most ridiculous questions, feel free to chuck them in as you wish, whatever you want to do. So, oh, hello there, Alex. It is lovely to see you. Oh, long-handled spoons made of chocolate. I mean, I can get what you're saying, like chocolate is good, long-handled spoons made of chocolate. But what if you were trying to eat hot chocolate? You could do that with a long-handled spoon made of metal. But you could not do it if it were made of chocolate. It would just melt. It would not be good enough. So I disagree. I am... Sorry, I hope I'm not being aggressive with this spoon waving. Like, I think that this spoon that I've got here is one of the best spoons. A long, small... I think this is where it's at. Exactly. It's not so good for getting me out of the jar. I mean, if you wanted mayonnaise and even if it didn't break, you would... I mean, mayonnaise and chocolate, is that a good combination? You've got to think these things through. Yeah, I hope. So, I mean, I'm not dissing chocolate, not at all, but I hope you can see the utility value in metal for spoon. Okay. Now, oh, thank you. Chocolate mayo, yum, is... Is it? Have you had this? Or are you being sarcastic? I mean, I could see it being an acquired taste, but no. I mean, no, I'm not so keen. Okay. I'm glad, CD. Thank you for sharing that. I assume that's for me. If you could make a spoon out of any material, what would I choose? You know what? Honestly, I would not mess with this. I feel like this spoon... I don't know what material this is. I'm assuming it's stainless steel. It's a heavy metal. I cannot bend it. I personally cannot bend it. I'm sure that if I put it onto a table and, really pounded at it, maybe I could. But with my... At least here, I cannot bend it. It doesn't rust. It feels good. It feels kind of soft. There's no sharp edges around it. There's, it's all rounded. I think that this is a good spoon. I would choose this spoon. Oh yeah. We are at the questionably quick questions. Yep. I said that if you want to say any questionably quick questions, you can. And so just feel free to comment, ask questions, do whatever. And so yeah, normally that's after my questionably quick questions. But yeah, if anyone, because I wasn't sure if anyone did have any questionably quick questions, like when it's a guests, I normally start things off and then I ask, what time is it? Where are you? Everyone here knows that I am in Glasgow. It is currently 10:15. If you're not based in the UK, then presumably you know the difference in time between New Zealand and the UK. And so it is 10:15. It is where I am. Feel free to ask the questionably quick questions whenever you want, and I will answer them as we go through. It is all good. Need we call Yuri Geller? Hmm. I have no desire to bend the spoon. I have no desire. But I'm just saying it's a strong spoon. It's a good spoon. It's a soft spoon. I could put this spoon into my mouth and not worry about maybe it's going to. And I don't think that I should be deciding the material for spoons to be made out of. I mean, sure, I could say, and it's also if I could make, okay, there's two questions here. I mean, I could interpret this as if I could have a spoon made out of any material, what would I choose? In which case, sure, I would choose maybe a really expensive material like diamond. And then I could sell the spoon, or I could be like, hey, look at my fancy diamond spoon. Um, and yeah, a spoon out of gallium that I'm not, I have no idea how that would work, or a spoon out of hope. I mean, a hope spoon, but I'm having a lot of hope. If that's in the shape of a spoon, like how much hope would I get if I were having a spoon of hope? Like, would that actually be like 0.1% more hope than I've currently got, or would that be 500% more hope? And would I want so much hope? Like maybe at a certain point, if you've got too much hope, maybe you just end up like you're always hoping for things and then they never come to fruition. Like if my it's about the line between hopes and expectations, because if I was hoping for things and those hopes seemed so strong that I believed that those hopes would definitely happen, that's not great, is it, for my mental health? If I believe, yeah, UK Games Expo, oh yeah, it's definitely happening. Oh, Nuremberg, oh, it's definitely happening. Oh, Aircon, yeah, I mean, to I'm not going to say you can't hope for things, but certainly too much expectation, and the two are very much combined. Anyway, so question: any material now? If I could have a spoon, but keep it for eating out of, would I want a bone spoon? Would I want a metal spoon like this? Would I want a fancy spoon to just? But the real question is, if I could make a spoon out of, well, I'm going to assume that the R was a typo, because if I were to say, if I could make a spoon out or any material, what would I choose? And I would choose any material. I would want to have any material more than making a spoon out. But if I could make a spoon out of any material, is it like that I'm starting a new task with my current abilities? Because maybe wood carving, maybe carving something out of wood, that feels like achievable, and it feels like afterwards I'd be like, yeah, look at my wooden spoon. I made this wooden spoon myself. Go me. But if you are giving me the ability to make a spoon out of any material, like then I would have to do something crazy. Like I'm thinking, what if I could make a spoon out of, like it would be like a party trick. Like let's say I could make a spoon out of glass. Like let's say was good at glass blowing. I was so good at doing glass things that I could make a spoon out of glass. I think that would be quite an achievement. I mean, I'm trying to think of if there's anything else I would prefer, but I'm going to go with glass because I think it would be really cool to be able to make things with glass. So yes, that is my final answer, is glass. Okay. So let's see. Alex always has questions. I do. Which is your least favorite spice girl? I'll get to that in a minute. Gallium melts at 30 degrees, which means it's really funny to make a teaspoon out of. Diamonds in the soles of her spoons. You can get teaspoon molds for use of gallium. Are you a chemist, Rob? Oh, Rob's got a spoon made out of horn. Yeah, I mean, what happens once it's all melted? Like, once the gallium spoon is melted, is it just a splooge? Does it then dissolve into your tea? Is gallium rare? Like, would that make the tea undrinkable? CD suggests that wood or bone would be pretty easy to carve out of. And so, yeah, sure, if I were to, someone says, make a spoon, and you've got a week to make a spoon, and I'm in a mindset to make a spoon, then, yeah, sure, I would do one of them. I mean, if I just wanted to get it up and over with, maybe I'd choose like a paper napkin, and then I'd kind of crumple it together and say, hey, here's a badly made spoon out of a, there you go, it's a spoon. You see, like, there's a spoony bit and there's a handly bit. It's not very good, and hey, it's collapsed. But there, I got that finished with. You end up with a lump of metal at the bottom of your cup, which can then remold. Rob says that it doesn't improve the taste of the tea, but does it make the tea poisonous? That's what I want to know. Welsh love spoons. That's something I'll have to check out. Anyway, yeah. Does anyone know anything about glassblowing? Which is my least favourite Spice Girl? Why are you always on about spice up your life? Well, I'll tell you which I don't like, which I really, really don't like. Gonna tell you. Okay, so which ones are there? There's the baby spice, there's the posh spice, there's the sporty spice, there's the ginger spice, and there's the scary spice. Scary spice, that just kind of, baby spice also seems like a weird thing. That kind of goes into, I mean, it makes sense, like, from a marketing perspective. It's like, okay, we're like comic characters and we've got to be one-dimensional. Okay, posh spice, okay, that sporty spice, okay, that's a good thing to be. Sporty spice, definitely, in terms of name alone, sporty spice is up there. That's aspirational. Scary spice, okay, down here. Ginger spice, okay, that's in the middle. Baby spice. So what I'm saying is that ginger is kind of just, okay, that's what you are. Okay, I see that, how that's a defining feature. Sporty spice, okay, great. Well, you are the particularly sporty one. Okay, that's aspirational. I like that. Now, of the other three, okay, so we've got baby, scary, and posh. Okay, so it feels like, yes, scary spice just felt like always the weirdest one, and it's like, really are giving it to my memory, like the one person who isn't white. I mean, it kind of feels like, isn't that, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but like, this is the whole point of questionably quick questions. I mean, isn't that delving a bit too much into xenophobia to have like scary spice be the one person who isn't white? So it's not that they're my least favorite, but that's my least favorite name. Let's go with that. Yep, I've decided my least favorite Spice Girl name, but that's not what was asked. I mean, in terms of, I feel like the question asked requires me to know these people, and I'm going to say that I know basically none of them except for Victoria Beckham. I literally do not know any of their actual names. So because I know Victoria Beckham the most, but I'm going to say that Victoria Beckham is both my most and least favourites. I know that sounds weird, but I'm going to go with Victoria Beckham. There we go. Okay. And ginger is a kind of spice anyway. That's true. Like, actually, that, yeah, ginger goes up there. Okay. So, yeah, it's baby or scary. And I love Scary Spice. She's got great attitude. Yeah, like, Scary Spice is good for, like, in terms of a, seem like might be a great person, but I just mean in terms of, like, I was just going entirely by their names. I just remember Sporty wears a tracksuit. Ginger is Ginger. Baby has like the pigtails. Was Baby like the youngest of the lot? I don't know. But that's kind of problematic in a way. That's infantilism. But anyway, Baby and Scary seems slightly, I don't know, problematic to me. But yeah, as far as the actual people, yep, I'm going with Victor Beckham. And gallium is apparently very slightly toxic, but you need to ingest a lot of it to have problems. Okay, there you go. Sportsy is the one who could actually sing. She performs in musical theatre. There you go. Wow. Man, there you go. Learning things about. So, if you want to ask questionably quick questions, you can feel free to do so. And I will answer up to one in between each of these podcasts. Otherwise, as I was saying, feel free to comment, ask questions from like follow throughout this show. And I am going to get on with it. And I am going to start off with number one, and I'm going to look at my phone as a crib sheet to see how many episodes and stuff they have. Board game podcast is what I'm talking about. Board game podcast, I'm not gonna shout. I am talking about Tabletop Games blog. Oh wait, I meant that to be a thing at the top. I am talking about Tabletop Games blog. If life is a machine, then this is a cog. That's a really bad metaphor. But still, I'm going to say I adore this show because it is very good and it definitely provides food for thought. Tabletop Games blog. It's a show I recommend. Tabletop Games blog. Although I'm biased because Oliver's kind of a friend. So, Tabletop Games blog, yes. Melcy was my favourites at the time. And bye-bye CD. And yes, Tabletop Games blog. There, if you go onto Apple Podcasts, then I've listened to everything that's available, which is from 8th of September 2020. No, wait a minute. September, October, November. Yep. It only goes back as far as 8th of September 2020. So, Tabletop Games blog. How am I biased? How did I come to listen to it? I can't remember how I found out about it. Oliver is a person that I've met. Oliver has played, tested, seized the power. I am part of Oliver's Discord. Oliver seems like a lovely person, so I am very much biased about this. What is it? Tabletop Games blog is basically an audiobook version. I'm getting to this, Rob. Tabletop Games blog is an audiobook version of Tabletop Games blog, and Oliver just reads out their shows. So if you go on to Apple Podcasts, let me I don't like people seeing what I'm currently listening to. I can't. No, I can't go back. But basically, I promise you, on Apple Podcasts, you can't go back further than 2020. Maybe you can with other podcast catchers, but you can't with this one. And so that's what I'm going on. And that is what I am basing my personal judgment on. I've listened to all the ones that are available, but as Rob says, there are many earlier ones. Each week, Oliver releases 2 short episodes. They are about 7 minutes, 6 minutes long. One of them will normally be about a topic. Another one will normally be a review of a game. And there might be another one, which is a board game artist talking about their art. Now, if you go online to Tabletop Games blog, you can read all of these things and see how far back it goes. I mean, Oliver's been doing it a while. Maybe someone else can tell me how long it's been going, but I might have heard some of the old shows, and then back in maybe a year ago, I was more about reading than I was about listening to shows. So I would rather just read and enjoy that. But now I'm more of, hey, you know what? I am going to listen to someone talking about himself. I would rather listen to someone reading out this thing. And unlike most podcasts, which are just someone blethering on like I currently am, Tabletop Games Blog podcast is scripted. Oliver writes everything. It's written in a clear, direct way. There is no faff. And as a result, you get these thought out essays. And Oliver doesn't really do any expose. Oliver doesn't share, oh my God, this is what can be done. There's nothing which is a big revelation of information, but everything that is written or said, it's like, oh, you know what? That's a really good point. And maybe it gets you pondering, and maybe you agree with it. Maybe you don't. If you don't, then even better, because then it facilitates thoughts in your own head. As it happens, I find myself agreeing with, at least with regards to the topical essays, I think I've agrees with 99 point some amount of what has been written. And certainly it aligns with my own values. With the recent episodes, which I listened to this morning, because I tend not to listen to podcasts at the same day that they came out, were a review of Love Letter and a talk about learning games together. The joy of that. And whilst I'm not going to say that this means that Oliver never makes big sweeping statements, it's not like Oliver says learning games together is better than learning games and then playing it as part of different groups. Oliver just reminds us of some certain truths. And Oliver reminds us of, yes, these are some great things. And I would certainly, this is a show that if I could have access to all the old episodes, I would definitely be listening to it. And I could imagine myself, certainly with the topic, after a few years going back and listening to them and being, that's very good. But yeah, I think this, in terms of benefit to time ratio, this is one of the best podcasts out there. It is brief, it is succinct, it is well written, or scripted, I should say. And yeah, Oliver's a good person, so definitely check it out. Tabletop Games Blog, highly, highly recommended. I cannot recommend that enough. Honestly, if someone was saying, oh, I don't have time for podcasts, oh, I don't have time for these things, I would say, yeah, just listen to this one. It's really short. It's like maybe 15 minutes of content a week, like maybe 20 minutes. It's not too much at all. Okay, let's go back. And so, yeah, Tabletop Games Blog. I'm not saying that this is a thorough review. It's the reason that I put review in quotation marks was because none of these are things that I feel like I've done loads of work or research for. It's just that I've listened to them, and so this is my personal opinion. Now let's get into the next one, which is another production by Oliver in conjunction with Antoinette Mason. There are 24 episodes, each one about an hour and a half-ish, I think. Yep, generally, yep, looks like about an hour and a half. He's come out monthly-ish. It's been going since 11th of March 2019. All of the episodes are available on the podcast app that I use. And both of these people are super lovely. I am biased again. So I knew Antoinette Mason a little bit more than I knew Oliver at the time. I heard about Antoinette. I invited Antoinette on their first trip out to Essen to come by my booth. And, Antoinette came over. I did a quick demo of I think it was Wibble specifically. It was definitely one of the LDEC games. Antoinette got a copy of it and promised to do some sorts of coverage of Wibble, and then did some coverage of Kitty Cataclysm, and then told me that really they wanted to move away from the sorts of games that I make. But still, we've got that. Again, there's the bias, not to mention the bias that I have towards Oliver Kin and the bias of, I'm parts of this Discord also have submitted a couple of Agony Aunt questions. Yeah. So Tabletop Inquisition, what is it? It is very much a chance for Oliver and Antoinette to catch up, chat for maybe 15, 20 minutes about, hey, what have you been playing? Oh, what have you been playing? Oh, I really enjoyed this game. Oh, I have not heard of that, but I'll check it out. Oh, I really enjoyed this other game. But yeah, that's kind of what Tabletop Inquisition's about. And then it moves to the bulk of the show. Again, it's a formula that you might have heard in such shows as On Board Games, Our Turn. It's a very common one. What have we been playing? Followed by a big topic. And their big topic might be like, who are we? Game terminology, a preview, or they have done interviews with like Richard Simpson, which was fun, or Paul, or filler versus heavy games. Christmas time, what games are good for Christmas? And then singing the jingles, which I quite enjoyed that. Or how we play while we're locked down. And so it's very much topics from the perspective of just people who enjoy playing games and are passionate about games. The passion always comes through. These are people for whom games matters so much. And this is a much longer form podcast. And oh yeah, I totally get where you're coming from, Rob. But it is very much kind of nailing down into it. And I love this show. They are such lovely people. And sometimes, I'm not going to lie, the Christmas time episode was one of my less preferred ones. I prefer things like the filler versus heavy or lockdown, or I quite liked the interviews but the topics are quite light, and the topic might be just about, hey, here's this cool convention that is coming up. And positivity and enthusiasm, I think these are good words. Thank you, Rob. And so I think that this is a show full of positivity and enthusiasm. Oh, I need to remember, I'm going to write down that because I think I listened to all of it. And anyway. So that is Tabletop Inquisition. If you enjoy a longer form podcast, and give it a go. I would say listen to episode 1 and then 5. If I had to suggest 3 episodes for you to get a taste of it, I would suggest episode 1, Who Are We? Episode 7, Paul Grogan of Gaming Rules interview, and episode 8, which is Push Your Luck Deck Building and Dungeon Crawler, and that will give you a taste of what it's all about. And it's really good. There's only 24 episodes, so depending on how many podcasts you listen to, again, these all come recommended. So let me just quickly catch up. So people have mentioned about Immersed, and I just finished Immersed this week. Amazing quality, yep. Great show from the Cardboard Edison people. Did they ever do any more episodes? So because I've gone through multiple phones, the annoying thing for me is that whenever I go through a new phone, I lose track of all my old podcasts. Like, there is one podcast that I would definitely recommend, but I cannot find it, which is, at least on Games with Garfield, also known as the Three Donkeys, and I can see it on Stitcher. So I'm just going to. This is a bonus thing. I am not reviewing this, but whoops, I didn't mean to do it there. I meant to do it here. And this is randomly Games with Garfield. Yeah, like this is a show that it's not available on the Apple Podcast app. I don't know why, but Games with Garfield, that's a great show. Anyway, I feel like ideally, in an ideal world, I should be giving links to all these things, but yeah, I'm not as prepared as I could be. I will maybe transcribe this into my BGG blog at some point. So let's go with, yeah, Immersed made 8 episodes. Yep, it was a Patreon thing, if I remember correctly. That is a good show. I will. So, what was I going to do? Oh, yeah, I was going to review the Mind Games podcast. There we go. So, the Mind Games podcast, I have listened to all of it except for 12 minutes because they started talking about Life is Strange, and I'm still making my way through that. And I know, and because I'm just doing it, then I'll listen to those 12 minutes once I've finished. So what is this show all about? There are, I don't know how many episodes. It's monthly-ish. So it's been going, all of them are available on Apple Podcast app. It runs from 1st of July 2018, and it's been about monthly-ish. They are going into their 3rd season. They have a mixture of shows that are about facets of board games or video games or RPGs or whatever. And I am biased about this one again because I have been on this show. Technically, I've been on 2 of the shows along with Tiz about Seize the Power. When we were invited to be on the show, I listened to a good, I think maybe 5, 6 of the episodes just before we'd gone on to get a taste of it. And it was great fun. And so I am biased because, yep, got a personal connection there. What is this game? What is this thing all about? It is about games from a more holistic point of view. It's not just about board games. It's not just about video games, but it equates them all together. It puts them all together and says, hey, let's just get 3 people together and have a bit of a ramble. We started off with like games that we play, which is just them talking about what games they play. Then what makes how do you represent work in games? How do you represent faith in games? Then they had a 4-parter where they played Dog Eat Dog, and then they talked about colonialism in games, talked about dating in games, currency in games, economies, playing gods, and Power Gaming was with us, grind in games. That was such an interesting one. Politics. They do sometimes get really into politics. Then they had some deep dives, which was into Neopets, Disco Elysium, and there were and Magic the Gathering. These are people who play games and want to think deeply about what this means. These are people who accept that games can shape us, that games can affect who we are. And after, I think in season 2, they started having little games at the end where they would go through a quiz. That is not my personal preference. Those quizzes are fun to listen to, but I would prefer to just have the bit before it. But if you don't like game show type things, you could just, skip that content quite easily. I would say that this is a really good show for anyone who's, wanting to just explore and ponder what has been, what exists. in terms of what's economies, how are economies represented in games? How is theology represented in games? How is faith or colonialism represented in games, to talk about these things? And it's almost like a survey of what exists. It's not generally talking about what could be, but it's talking about what is, and that's a really useful thing to be aware of. And actually, Mind Games podcast, I could just, is it worth me Mind Game, there we go. Is it worth me putting in a wee link to each one so that people know that this is the one that I'm talking about, or is it completely superfluous? Let me know what you think in the chat. But yeah, that is a wee link to the Mind Games podcast. And hopefully that's given you a bit of an idea of whether you would like it or not. So next, I am going to talk about one that I am even more biased about, the Offline Gamer. So we had Matt from the Offline Gamer on my show yesterday. Matt was talking yesterday all about how they got into gaming, about, yeah, I've actually got my notes here. We talked about food, about microtransactions, about the nature of grind, about designers' responsibility in gaming, about comedy and mental health and picking yourself up after depression, and then about the nature of doing a podcast. And yeah, so Matt was a wonderful person. I have met Matt and Ray, both of them, multiple times at conventions. I've never been on their show, but I have had my stuff talked about on their show. I enjoy this show. It is, again, it's not a deep dive. It's not a survey into what exists. This is what I would say a typical, okay, here's a couple of people, and we just talk about what we're up to. So we'll just talk about the games that we've been playing. We'll just talk about, okay, a show that we've been at recently. They have helpfully numbered all their shows, so it's 59 episodes, and they do a bit less than one a month. So if you look at the title of the episodes, well, some of them are, the first one that's really got to topic is UK Games Expo for episode 10. Then sometimes they have someone on. They had Kevin Young. Sometimes they had Pete Hazelwood. They talk about Essen. When they talked about a particular game, they might have had a bit of a focus about a particular game. They might talk about Kickstarters that they've backed, why they are backing it, and talking about what they've been up to, what they've been enjoying. And this is very much what I would consider a stereotypical podcast in a lot of ways. I'm probably going to continue listening to this forever. Now, I'm not saying it's a bad show, but at the same time, it doesn't do anything massively new. I don't feel like I'm learning, oh, this is the hot newness, this is what's going on. Or this is, it's not a way to learn the news, it's not a way to get a deep dive, it's not a way to learn about how to make games. So you might ask, well, what is it? It's just two lovely people talking about games that they've been playing and sharing that information and sharing a little bit of joy and saying, you know what, this is a thing that we've enjoyed. And even though I might have very little interest in backing a game, oh, you know what, actually, they do have some sections that are unique to them now. They do have a section which is all about, hey, let's look on Kickstarter and just laugh at all the political games. And then they laugh at all the political games and how, and it's like, oh my God, people are doing these cash-ins. Like, You can imagine back in the days when Donald Trump was president, which for those who are watching this after the fact, Donald Trump was taken out of presidency a few days ago, because Biden was elected a few months ago, and then there's like a time, and then Donald Trump had to leave the office. So, I mean, it wasn't the most magnanimous thing. But anyway, you can imagine that during Donald Trump's presidency, a lot of people were making political games. Also, there was a lot of COVID-related games, and then they had a section, hey, let's look at all these COVID-related games and just shake our heads and look and talk about how these are all cash-ins. And kind of it's poking fun in a, I'm not going to say gentle way, but it's not exactly mean-spirited. But yeah, it's poking fun at these cash-ins, let's say. And so the Offline Gamer, great, lovely show, lovely to listen to. I love these people and I'm always going to enjoy it. So that is the end, and I hope that you've got a good sense of whether you want to listen to the Offline Gamer. Now I can catch up with chat. So, firstly, hello Jay Samra. It is lovely to see you. I don't know who you are, but from your username, I assume, have we met at a convention or something? But I hope you are doing well, and I hope you are having an excellent day. I believe in some parts of the world it is already Monday. In some parts of the world it is still Saturday, but I'm going to assume that it's Sunday for you. I hope you're having a good weekend, if weekend means anything. These at the Housing Convention. I'm trying to remember. Housing Convention. Oh. Hello, Matt. Oh man, I feel slightly embarrassed now. I hope that what I said seems like fair-handed and okay. But yeah. Alex, and it's lovely to have you, QB. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what Housing Convention. Alex, what info do you mean? Do you mean the links? Because if so, then no, I don't have the links. I'm just, but yeah, do you think I should like make a thing on the Discord? And yeah, Offline Gamer, I was going to put up Toddcast. I'm sure there should be a link to the Stitcher, or there we go. Here's a thing. But okay, so Housing Convention in Dublin. I've been in Dublin. I have been in Dublin, but I don't believe I've been to a Housing Convention. Anyway, I'm glad that Matt. So this is, for those who don't know, QB is also Matt Warwick of the Offline Gamer, who I had yesterday, and yep, I'm really happy to hear that. So, yep. Anyway, Alex, feel free to let me know, and Jay, feel free to give me any more further details. And I'm sorry that my memory is so short. I think this is the penultimate podcast because I've been going in alphabetical order, although there's things that I will find in the middle and get rid of that. There, think like a game designer. Now, this is, I'm just going to come out and say it. This, in my opinion, is the best podcast if you want to be a game designer and you're at a similar level to me. Yep. I am going with, for me, actually, I'm going to change my thing. For me, I believe that this is the best podcast for being a game designer. Like, if someone said, you can listen to only 10 hours of podcasts per year, which 10 hours of podcasts per year would you pick to be the best board game designer that you can be, I would say this one. And I'm not saying that's how I would want to do that. It's like Who, What, Why. That's brilliant. Ludology, it's brilliant. Board Game Design Roundtable, that's great. Board Game Design Lab, that's, it's a really nice podcast, and the focus is quite good. Trying to think what's other. I'm sure there's things that I'm forgetting. Oh yeah, that's Fun Problems. That's good. Oh yeah, and Richard Garfield's podcast. That's really good. Yeah, Richard Garfield's podcast is a good one. But that's abandoned anyway. But Think Like a Game Designer. So I don't really have much bias about this one. I don't know who Justin Gary is. I am biased because I know some of the guests who are on. I'm biased because I have personal associations in my mind with guests, because I am also an aficionado of Magic the Gathering, so I have a lot of respect for Mark Rosewater and Richard Garfield, who have both been on this show. This show, it's been going for... Sorry, let me double check. It is 23 episodes. It's been going since January 2019. Mike Selinker, Jesse Schell, James Ernst, Paul Peterson, Tim Fowers. Like, these are big names. Some of them you might not have heard of, like Elan Lee, who made Exploding Kittens, but like Matt Places or Michael Nade aren't the biggest names, but these are people who have so much to offer, and each person, it's coming on for one show, and it's not about, okay, let's talk about word games and we're going to try and theme everything around word games, which I appreciate Board Game Design Lab doing that. I don't want to like downrate anything. I don't want to say all of these podcasts that I've been talking about are podcasts that I absolutely love. I've listened to all of them that I can, and that are available on my app. And, Isaac Childress coming on, which would you rather have? Let's just think about it for a moment. Would you rather have Isaac Childress coming on to talk about making big games? And, okay, here's my tips for if you want to make a really big game, or Isaac Childress to talk about dungeon crawlers? Or would you rather have Isaac Childress just coming on to talk about the best game design advice that they can give, regardless of genre? If the latter, then this is a show for you. This is a show where each episode, it normally lasts about an hour and a half, I want to say. I'm going to double check. It's in that region. And Ralph Coster, A Theory of Fun, like, these, it's like, come on, let's talk about how have you done what you've done? What have you learned? And I was re-listening to the Richard Garfield episode this morning to kind of remind myself, because this is one where I do listen to it pretty much as soon as it comes out. It's only once a month-ish. It's not at a specific time. If we look, 4th of August, 10th of September, 21st of October, 30th of November, 18th of December, it comes very much from it's a month-ish apart, but I'll do it when I do it, kind of school of thought. Yeah, like, came up in January, and so it would have been 24 episodes, but it's actually only 23. But the point is that each time someone's on, we end up talking about, yes, for Richard Garfield, let's talk about how Keyforge was done. Let's talk about a quick bit about Magic, but Magic's been talked about so much. Let's briefly pass by that. Let's talk about the unique issues with Keyforge, because that's what you are doing right now. Let's talk about spectral chaos. Let's talk about balancing. And Justin Gary, as an interviewer, is willing to challenge things, even when talking to the legend, the bleeping legend that is Richard Garfield. Even then, Justin Gary still says, oh, you know what, like, I'm going to add this bit of information. I'm going to even not assume that it's not like just, whoa, it's not idolizing these people. It's very much both people are having a conversation, and yes, the guest is contributing more, because I think that is part of what makes a good interview show. And I'm trying to, especially for when I start doing my bonus Bezzy beats and board game bledders, that is one thing that I will try to do my utmost. But this is very much, it's not say, who are you? How did you get, it's just a, okay, how do you get into game design? What are you doing? Let's just get into some conversations and let's go wherever the conversations are. And this is all going to be useful stuff. And so this is honestly my number one pick. And for, yeah, people who are wanting to make games, if you want to make a game, then. Oh, and hello to Timmy. It's lovely to have you. And Stream Elements is reminding me that I need to do a little jiggle and wriggle. So because I've got a reminder every 37 minutes to get out of my seat. And so, yep, I'm glad that that has been useful to you. And I don't know if it's even worth me sharing the links. No one has expressed a preference, so I'm not going to bother, because I'm assuming that for all of these shows, you probably have your own podcast app that you enjoy using, and so you will be able to find it. Think like a game designer. I'll show you the wee picture. That's what it looks like. Justin Gary. There we go. And yeah, that was a big outro. But yeah, hello to me. I hope that. So I am just reviewing some board game podcasts today, and then I'm going to talk about Usagi Yojimbo, and then I'll pretty much just wrap up. But how have you been doing today? I hope you've had a good weekend. I hope everything is generally okay with you, and lots of love. And thank you for joining me. Now, board game. Board games are cool as well. So I'll try and answer this question. I am not creating a game live on this show today. I have been working on board games, so actually I realised that I've not talked about myself at all today. Let me so this is the thing that I am proudest of, which is Wibble++. There should be one of these boxes. It might be full. I'm best known for Yogi, which is a game of contortion, but I am always working on new games. We are having a game jam, which I am going to be working on games, some of them with other people, and anyone who wants to join me for that. It is from 6th to 13th of February, so in 2 weeks' time. So that's, but normally I don't do game design stuff live on the show, but after the 6th and the 13th, if any of those ideas are things that feel like they deserve continuation, then I will do that. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I am, I guess, a full-time board game designer, developer, self-publisher. So I am talking all about board games. So traditional card-based, cardboard, the software that I use. The only software that I use is BB Edit, which is just like a text editing software, just because I like writing in it and maybe InDesign. But for a game jam, it's basically just pad, paper. Last time I did a game jam, which was Idle Michael's thing, what did I use? I used paper, pens, and shared information in Discord. And yep, I wrote down a long thing, and then I did put those instructions. Yeah, so yep, absolutely, game jams for board games, exactly. So I will be talking about for board game jams. Some people do use Tabletop Simulator or Tabletopia. That's true. Yep, I am very tech adverse. I should point that out. So it is more normal. So for Idle Michael's thing, there was a printer going on. There was image editing software, and I know that Rob uses something called Nandeck, which is something about where you can turn bits of art into cards, and so that works really well. And yeah, thank you for following. And so yeah, if you are making video games, then I absolutely understand. Then you're going to be using something completely different. But and so lots of the podcasts that I've been talking about, from a video game design point of view, I would say that the Mind Games podcast is actually the best one. But Think Like a Game Designer, even though that is very board game focused, there should be lots of aspects that help you even in your video game design. But no, it's really cool to have a video game designer following. Let us know what you have been working on, or what you've worked on, or what you are working on. But I'm going to ignore chat for unless 4-5 minutes or so. I'm going to just tell everybody about this one final thing, which is the We Are Not Wizards podcast. I should say 401 episodes, and them are available. So yeah, episode 1, there you go. It goes back all the way to February 2016. This is such Richard was so bleeping prolific. So Richard Simpson, first I'm going to talk about why I'm biased. I'm biased. I have been on this show 3-4 times. This was the first ever podcast I was part of. I heard this podcast. I really enjoyed it. I was like, you know what? Maybe I'm good enough to be on a show. Maybe I too could be on a podcast. So I reached out to Richard and I said, Richard, here's some things that I could talk about. And before the first show, I wrote so many show notes. I was like, yeah, okay, like, here's some things that I really want to make sure that I talk about. Like, I really want to talk about. And also, this is the only podcast in which I have, unless you count this as a podcast, this is the only audio podcast in which I've said the name of a game wherein you blether, a Scottish word meaning to talk at length for the fast rate without necessarily making very much sense using them. Although I should say that that was the name back then. The name is continuing to evolve. Anyway, We're Not Wizards, Richard Simpson and I would consider us to be friends at this point. What is it? Richard Simpson, every episode is interviewing someone. So going back to the start, it is okay, so it started off with Richard and Richard's friends just talking about talking about games. There was a bit of Dark Souls chats in there. There was a bit of RPG chats in there. There was a bit of board game, tiny bits of video game. But then there was, okay, friend of the show. But then very quickly, it became very quickly it became more about the interviews. Every episode, it's, hey, just come on, and it's chaos. There is no structure. Someone comes on with a game, that game is ready for Kickstarter, and Richard Simpson will say, so what have you had for tea? And how did you get into games? And was it Monopoly? And then, well, maybe they'll mention like the dog, and then maybe they'll start talking about game pieces, and then they'll follow that. This show is all about tangents. This show is all about the chaos, about the unstructured, unbridled chaos of just following every tangent, and in that way, learning about these people, learning about, okay, who is Jamie Stegmaier and Peter Blenkhorn? Like, who is Rado? Like, you don't, it's not, hey, okay, so Rado, how were you when you were growing up? How were you how did you get into board games? How is it doing all these reviews? It's just say, what are you doing? Like, what is interesting you? Let's just talk about this. And yeah, it's ridiculous. Like Mark Cook, episode 152, ostensibly coming on to talk about Aircon, but then talking a lot about Rodney Smith. 212, I don't know who Jeremy Falger is, but by the time that you've listened to that episode, you will you might not have an idea about their childhood, but you'll know what they are like to chat to. You'll know what they are like to converse with, because that's what Richard excels at, getting that joy out of their things. Dr. Michael Heron, Meeples Like Us, of course, we talked about accessibility and ethics, but it's more of the unbridled conversation. Geek Dad, like, sure, these people have something to promote. Sophie Williams, sure. Daniel Newman, Rory O'Connor, like all of these people. Jackson Pope, who's a good friend of mine, and again, Richard Simpson lives in Scotland. Not too, when I say not too far from me, I mean, yeah, from a US point of view, not too far. And then Rita Orlov, sure, Rita comes on, talks about Post-Curious, this kind of escape room in a box thing that Rita's made, and it's this beautiful artwork. It's like this very, very expensive, but beautiful. I've not actually played any of them. But then just talking about, hey, so how did you get into this and what's it all about? Now, Richard has stopped the show. 14th June 2020. From 2016 to 2020, Richard Simpson did like multiple episodes every week, which is why you get up to 428 episodes in 4 years. And then it was We're Not Wizards Presents, where Richard Simpson invited other people, other friends, other media creators to submit one episode. So then, yeah, we had Tabletop Games blog and Brainwaves and myself and Pointless Parrots and Quackalope and all sorts of people. And then there was one episode from Richard Simpson himself in November. But really, this show it's likely that it might never come back. I don't know. Now, is it worth listening to? That's the key thing. Like, who is this show good for? Let me actually look at the thing. I will catch up with all this chat properly. I'm just going to focus on the show. We're Not Wizards doesn't exist, and Richard is absolutely a wizard. Oh. There is this whole running gag at the end where you say, oh, so one thing left to do. Firstly, where can people find you? And finally, are you a wizard? Oh, it's like, okay, we might be, if talking to me, Richard Simpson might say, okay, we might be cat appreciating contortionists. We might be effervescent people, but we're not wizards, are we? And yeah, every time I've gone on, I have actually sung the show. But yeah, I would agree with that in terms of putting people at ease, in terms of drawing people out. Richard Simpson for sure. And yep, who is this show for? If you want to find out about the people, if you want to hear people blethering, if you are ready for a bit of unbridled chaos. Again, I've listened to all of these episodes. I've enjoyed them. I'm not going to re-listen to any of them, I don't imagine. But maybe one or two, like if it's like, okay, there's a reason that I need to know about this person, I could imagine myself going back. It's a nice resource. It's a nice way of, okay, let's learn a wee bit more about Rory O'Connor. Let me listen to them quickly. I might do that. I could see a situation where I would. But it's not like it's will it make me a better board game designer? That's low on the scale. Will it help me learn about games? Okay, a little bit. Will it help me learn about the people who make games? And that is who it's for. If you are interested in the people who are making board games, this is a brilliant show. And that is it. That's all I have to say about We're Not Wizards. So if you have any questions about We're Not Wizards, then, feel free to ask. I'm not as an expert as Richard Simpson is, but as I say, I've listened to all of it. And so that is the end of all my podcast reviews. So thank you for listening to that. And let me catch up with all the chat. So we've already had game jams for board games. Yep. And did I thank you for following? I hope I did. Thank you very much for following. just to let you know, I stream every day at 10 a.m. UK time. And hello, Prey. I think I saw Prey pop in. That was really lovely to see you. I hope you're having a decent, I guess it's Sunday morning. I don't know if you've got insomnia, but I hope you're generally well. Board Game Design Roundtable has good crossover between board games and video games. Yeah, because like for sure, from a holistic point of view, so much of how you teach a game, can be, we can learn from each other. Like legacy games, Risk Legacy, originally Risk Legacy was so inspired by video games. At the time, Rob Davio, I know this because Rob Davio mentioned it at least once, that having unlockable content, the notion of achievements, the permanent changes were a separate thing originally for, what's that murder game, Cluedo, also known as Clue in the US. But the actual, okay, achievements, if you bomb 3 cities, then open this envelope. That is a thing that Rob Davio got from, Xbox Live achievements, all that. And we can learn from, okay, especially nowadays, that there's campaign games, that board games are going more into a state of, okay, let's unlock envelopes. Let's, even if it's something resettable like Fabled Fruit, something like, sorry, I'm going to shift around boxes very quickly. Something like Flee, where ostensibly it teaches you as you go through the game. And like we can learn from each other, and there's so many cross-discipline relationships, like especially if you look at Slay the Spire, where deck building, that mechanism has been turned into video games. Like, and sure, there's loads of video game mechanisms that can never be applied to a board game. Like, how on earth are you going to do a first-person shooter? You could do what's that area control game that's the first-person? Adrenaline. Sure, Adrenaline is a first-person shooter game, but it's really an area control game where like your targets are the areas. It's not about the Twitch reactions. These sorts of Twitch reactions, there's a lot of that. It might be thematically about a first-person shooter, but it's not experientially about a first-person shooter. Do you know what I mean? But still, I agree with you, Rob, and the Mind Games podcast and Board Game Design Roundtable and all sorts of things where we can enjoy that. And that's why actually this morning I downloaded something new that I've never listened to before. I'm actually not. What was the it's, where's my downloaded episodes? Anyway, you just sometimes you learn from things, and it's about teaching, psychology, all of these things are crossover. Timmy's been working on an RPG for a year now. Cool. So with the Unreal Engine, and it's going well apparently, but a lot of work to do. Yeah. I mean, is that a Morpig, or is it a JRPG or an action RPG? I know that some people call action RPGs like American style RPGs, but yeah, I hope it's, and yeah, so I know that you say later on that you weren't aware of the board game. The board game is like this big, solid, immense thing. But yeah, Dark Souls, it's like, actually, We Are Not Wizards was talking about the video game as well, because Richard Simpson is apparently a really big fan of Dark Souls. And I know lots of board gamers are actually big fans of Dark Souls. Myself, not so much. I'm not so much into that punishments. And which podcast did you go on to? Feel free to let us know. Yeah, going on to podcasts and having a blether, it's lovely. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't think there was any clear. Is it still on sale? I mean, it's hard to track these things. And so, yeah, already said hello to Prey. It's 5 a.m. on Sunday. I'm assuming that there's so it's middle of the night, and oh wow, 7 a.m. in Scotia. I don't think I've ever had anyone from Scotia. I'm just looking that up now. Scotia is Latin. Where is Scotia? Where is? Do you mean Nova Scotia? No, that's in Canada. No, that's going to be earlier, isn't it? Anyway, Nova Scotia, Nova. Huh. Wow, it's really we're only 4 hours apart. Wow, that's amazing. That okay? So yeah, I've had Canadian viewers, but I've never had anyone from Nova Scotia. That's awesome. Well, thanks for joining the club. So yeah, and Prey is watching. It is the middle of the night, and yeah, Rob mentions Adrenaline, an area control Eurogame that doesn't look like an area control Eurogame. I've still yet to play this myself, although quite I've I have a vague understanding of a lot more games than I play, because I feel like as a game designer, sometimes it's good to know what's out there. So sometimes I just have a quick overview to see, okay, what mechanisms is within this game? Okay, what's the unique blend? Okay, why is this game doing well? And so that's, but yeah, Adrenaline was really interesting, and Tom Clancy's podcast. That I've not heard of Tom Clancy's podcast. That sounds cool. Feel free to share. You can't share a link, but if you share a link with Rob, then if Rob is willing to do that, then feel free to share a link via Rob. It's an action RPG, but not a top-down one. It's a third-person action RPG. Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm totally out of the video game loop. I was trying to think of something. Yeah, but yeah, feel free to share a link. Honestly, just so you know, Sundays and Fridays are a lot more chaotic, bledery. When I'm doing a read through of a game, or when I'm doing a play along, or when I'm having guests on, we don't have maybe quite as much idle chat. But yeah, so feel free to share the link, and I'll be interested to check it out. DSBG, Dark Souls board game, is listed at various shops online. Cool. Yeah, that doesn't really mean anything, though, does it? I mean, In a Bind Junior is also listed in at least one shop, and I sold the last ever copy at the end of 2016, I want to say. I know that just a case study on In a Bind Junior. Okay, so for those who don't know, In a Bind is the first thing I ever made. It is a game that has cards that say things like one hand on a knee, and then finger touching nose, finger touching ear, two hands touching, and you still need to somehow draw your next card. So you lean in, you draw that next card, and you need to find it, and it says this card touching eyebrow. So you need to get that card and get it so it's touching your eyebrow. The next turn, you need to get in and draw your next card. Anyway, so that was my first ever published, mass-produced game, and it did well, and it did okay. I made a small profit from it once all was said and done. I licensed it to Gigamic, who I believe made a much better version, because the cards are plastic, they're flexible, and yeah. But yeah, if it's at Zatu, anyway, and for sure, Zatu's probably not going to sit on loads of stuff for ages. But anyway, so I licensed it to Gigamic. Gigamic's done a great job. It's now known as Yogi. Yogi and Yogi Guru are constantly being printed, but In a Bind has not been printed for a while. I don't believe it's available anywhere. But In a Bind Junior, it's still available in one location, because I know at the end of the year I sold off maybe 300 copies at a discount to a distributor. I also sold off about 100 copies to this single shop, and that shop bought all of them. Then the distributor put them on sale like a year later. Then the shop bought out all the stock, and yeah, I heard personally from the shop that they said, you know what, we're going to sit on these. If it takes us 5 years, we're going to continue selling them at full price. We're not going to reduce it just because we've got 300 copies. It means that we're going to continue selling it for several years. But yeah, anyway, my point is that yes, games can take a while to trickle down, especially if, yeah. Anyway, that was a whole side tangent. So let me, where did my copy of it? Oh, it did. Sorry, hopefully I'm not exposing myself too much. Yeah, but Dark Souls board game, I know nothing about it. I'm not going to talk about it. So, Usagi Yojimbo. Here is Usagi Yojimbo. This is a second-hand copy I got. I bought it just a few weeks ago. I've decided that I'm going to buy all the Usagi Yojimbo books, and depending on what my statement from Gigamic is, because they are due to give me 7 days time, 1 week time. Contractually, they need to tell me, give me information in 7 days time, and then pay me within a month and 7 days. Basically, by the end of February, they need to pay me. Anyway, so I'm looking for. Hopefully, I'll have enough money to buy a few more comic books. Usagi Yojimbo, I'm just going to say, is my favorite comic by a long shot. I am always going to keep my Usagi Yojimbo book collection. My main book collection, it was only up to like episode to book 18, something like that. And I want to talk about this book specifically. Stan Sakai, Japanese American, writes about a rabbit in feudal Japan. You can see masterful line work, such simple shapes, but very effective and evocative. Really getting the emotions across. Even though everything is anthropomorphized, you can see such real emotions and such humanity. And I just think this is wonderful. Stan Sakai has won awards for lettering. Everything is, of course, lettered by hand, but Stan Sakai is a master at this. There is the Arts of Usagi Yojimbo book that I talked about a while ago. This whole book, I don't want to give too many spoilers, but yeah, let me actually talk about these skulls. This is one of the most pertinent. It's almost one of the most idiosyncratic things that when someone dies, they've got the little skull floating out, and normally it's only when someone's dead, unless they are an undead demon, like this monster. And this book, The Return of the Black Soul, concentrates on Jay. Jay being a monster with a pun, because if you say Jay-san, then it's a bit like Jason, who keeps coming back. Jay has never been able to be killed, even though Jay has been vanquished and beaten by Usagi using otherworldly methods. Jay's character will keep coming back and finding other human hosts. So this is only one chapter in the saga of Jay. But at the same time, if you want to read one Usagi Yojimbo book, I would say that this is a perfectly good book to start off with. The thing about Usagi Yojimbo is that a good character will keep coming and then going, and yeah. You've got, and so characters build, and then as Usagi travels from place to place, we see Usagi in this book teaming up with Genosuke, and Stray Dog. These are people that we have been introduced to many books ago. I want to say 17 books ago for Gen, and many more books ago for Stray Dog. And these cheerful characters who are bounty hunters, who are not the most magnanimous, who are clearly self-centered, killing people for money. But they do have regardless, a code of ethics. So brilliant characters, great writing. This can work standalone. If you're into comics, if you're into fictional comics, an anthropomorphized set version of feudal Japan, where yes, spirits exist, magic as exists, that is very, very much recommended. Usagi Ojimbo, my favorite comic ever. Oh my god, I almost forgot. This is another comic that I read last week. The New Adventures of Abraham. And let me actually, before I talk about that, I'm just going to have a wee peek. And for just joining the Ancient Sky with Timmy 707, that Tom Clancy show is go. Cool. This looks fun. I'm actually going to skim through it. And oh wow, it's got the wee icon and it's all cool. I'll have a wee listen on later. So thanks for joining us. I will be sure to check that out. It's all good, and I get that writing can be hard on a mobile. Anyway, back to the comics. I know we don't just talk about board games and video games and game design here. Although if I had to talk about why is this, I mean, I could easily compare this to a board game or a video game where, illustrations, having that expression, having that, the way that the black around the border and then the black shadows, making sure that the silhouette is stark against the white, simple things like that. Having the lines at dramatic angles, the lines of motion, the panels, these are things that can work in art and board games. And of course, you could have a comic in a board game, like Takenoko. Anyway, New Adventures of Abraham Lincoln. This is an old one from Scott McCloud. I got this one because it's withdrawn for sale from a library, and I got it for quite cheap. What year is it? Oh, I cannot see. But this is around the dawn of the internet. I believe that this was maybe from the 90s. And this was Scott McCloud making a comic just with computers for the first time. This was Scott McCloud going all in on computers. I'm just looking up, and I was expecting to see something there that I'm not seeing. But so Scott McCloud is the same person who did Understanding Comics, Reinventing Comics, and Making Comics. This is a book about Abraham Lincoln coming back to life, but something is amiss, and Abraham Lincoln is trying to take over the world with mind control. And there are points where then it's like, surely the American population isn't just going to be taken in by ridiculous rhetoric. And anyway, it's just quite let's not. There are some weird dream sequences. It's not my favorite art in any book. I find the colors personally a little bit garish. I find that for me, the 3D rendered backgrounds, which kind of look like I find the 3D rendered backgrounds and the front drawing, I find it's not great. But what I do find is it's just a fun story. It's completely ridiculous and it's fun to read. And that's all I'm going to say about that. So that is my review of stuff for this week. So that is the end of my reviews of things. Yeah, I don't have much more to say. Yo, 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 says Stream Elements. It is stretching time. Stretchy time, stretchy time. Now I'm going to sing a rhyme. Stretchy time, stretchy time. This is a time and this time is mine. This time right now is stretching time. Stretching time. Yeah. So that is the end of the show pretty much. If anyone else has any questions or comments, then feel free to let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to start my very slow wrap up. So, as I said at the start, yeah, feel free to ask questions, comments, like, follow. If you want to check me out, I am stuffbybez.com, stuffbybez.bigcartel.com, twitter.com/stuffbez, instagram.com/stuffbybez, twitch.tv/stuffbez, and I stream every day at 10 a.m. UK time. And you can check out my wee thing. Where's my wee thing? For my next streams, look there. Also, I share a schedule on Instagram every Sunday generally. I'm going to do that after this show. And what do we have coming up? We have next week. Tomorrow is Chaotic Shenanigans. I'm not sure what's going to happen, but people are free to put tasks in the topic. I will probably be blethering about games and just any random thoughts that come into my head, to just come in for a bit of a chat. Tuesday is going to be a practical session with advice from myself, from Ritom Modal, who made Men at Work, great dexterity game, and a couple of other things. Alan Paul, designer of March of Progress and many other games, and Matthew Dunstan, designer of Elysium and many other games, and co-designer of Elysium, I should say. And Matthew Dunstan's already also a nominee for Kennerspiel des Jahres, which is like the most prestigious award you can get, pretty much. So, yeah, being in the nominee, that's a pretty big deal, because I think there's only 4 nominees. Normally, it's like 3 nominees per year. So basically, that's saying that Matt's game was one of the top 3. Anyway, on Tuesday, we are going to be discussing prototypes, and that is the second episode in my new mini-series, which is about steps in which a game needs to be taken. Wednesday, I'm going to be reading The Warlock of Firetop Mountain. Thursday, oh my gosh, Thursday's a special episode with Calvin Wong Saloon, who's a writer and all-round amazing person based in Malaysia and a great big fan of Twilight Imperium. We will be talking about that, and there is some stuff that we might not be able to talk about, but for contractual reasons, but we will be discussing Twilight Imperium as much as we can. I don't normally, I don't do this a lot, and for a while I've just been doing it on Sundays, but we're having a deep dive because this is an epic game. It's like 5 to 12 hours, I think it says on Board Game Geek. So yeah, all about starships going around, blowing each other up, expanding, exterminating, and you could talk about colonialism, and maybe we will. I mean, I'm sure that Colvin will be up for that. So anyway, we're discussing that. Next Friday, we'll be talking about just random chats. Every Friday, it's Friendly Friday Forum. And next Saturday, I'll be trying to mentor Dutch Yoda. We're going to be playing maybe Dutch Yoda's game. I'll get an image manipulation program to be able to play the role and write. In this day and age, the way that board games are, a lot of board games do have to be played with digital assistants, let's call it. And so, yeah, we'll see how that goes. And of course, next Sunday, I will be here again, blethering about something else and hopefully finding something else to review. So, Mount Dunstan. Prototypes are hard. Yeah, I mean, of course, look, it's the board game world and the video game world is going to be quite different because in the video game world, my understanding is that a development studio will go and show an initial concept and just saying, okay, this is a wee part of the game, and then the publisher gives like a lot of money for it to be made and for it to all be done. Whereas for a board game designer, board games are something that it's a lot more within the capability of just one person to make it. And for sure, a board game designer, it's expected before you go to a publisher that your board game is pretty much finished. And then you go give it to the publisher, they pretty much don't expect anything more from you. They say, okay, this is the royalty percentage, this is your advance that you're going to get. And then, like, I could say that when I sign, and maybe, okay, this is the minimum number of copies that we commit to doing for a first print run. This is the minimum number of copies that we commit to doing for per year thereafter. And so yeah, but then it's down to the publisher to put in all the final art assets. And yeah, it's a very different structure between video games. And yeah, one of the advantages of tabletop games is that in principle a prototype can be a few bits of paper, exactly. And we're going to be talking about the exact construction of the prototype. So everything that comes before that first playtest. Like, I mean, things that come to my mind are like, you don't need to, before that first playtest, you don't need to have, if you want to have, you know, a game that's got 200 cards in it, maybe you just need enough cards for like a couple of turns just to say, okay, or maybe grab bits from another game. But how, I mean, with a video game, prototyping, taking a day and then having a playable prototype sounds quite quick. But for a board game, it's completely different again. If I'm lucky, I can think of an idea, and then once I've got the idea in my head, depending on what you need for the game, I could be playing it literally within a few seconds. Maybe just grabbing some cards that have already been made, because maybe that's what I'm using. Maybe just it needs a 5x5 grid. Okay, that's done. Now let's start playing. And yeah, for sure. And I think that you need relatively less for a video game than for a board game, but what relative and like as in there's more work to be done for a video game overall, I would say, in terms of the design. Like there's so much of the coding and the development and everything needs to be done, whereas that's like just something that's completely ignored for board games. So that's something that you have to do for the video game. So relative to the final playable published version, I would say relative to that final version, a video game you need to have done less, but in terms of absolute work, it probably takes a lot more work to get ready for a contract. But yeah. Anyway, that was a wee bit of a ramble, but yeah, what have I talked about today anyway? What have I been talking about? So, I have been talking about... Actually, let me just put up all these. Well, I've been talking about all these podcasts. Tabletop Games blog. This is the best podcast about board games if you don't have very much time to listen to podcasts about board games, I would say. It is like quite a basic thing. It's nothing, and it alternates between shows that are 6 minutes, 7 minutes, everything's 6-7 minutes long. It's basically an audiobook version of written articles by Oliver Kine. Yeah, I think it's Kine because Oliver is German. Sorry about that, Oliver, if you're listening. But Tabletop Games blog, I'm awarding it the best board game podcast if you're in a hurry. Tabletop Inquisition, I'm awarding that Oh man, it's really hard to think. Okay, what's the unique award I can give this? This is the best. This is just a really good show. Antoinette and Oliver, lovely people, talking about board games that they've enjoyed. And if you want to get into the minds of people who are just really passionate about board games and infusing yourself with that passion, that's a really good show. The Mind Games podcast. That's again I would say, if from all the ones that I've mentioned, this is the best one. If you're into maybe video games as well as board games, and it's, hey, let's do deep dives, let's talk about the economies, let's talk about religion, let's talk about politics within games. And Offline Gamer, that's just a lovely thing with lovely people, and yeah, with wee bits that make you giggle, like the political Kickstarter stuff. Think Like a Game Designer. This is genuinely the best show if you want to be a better board game designer, I would say. And yeah, can I call you Timmy? And Timmy, if you, I believe that you will also benefit from this because it touches upon, sure, algorithmically generated content like Keyforge. It's a bit less prevalent in board games, but it does get touched upon because, hey, Keyforge. And it is all from a board game point of view. But then some, like Spectral Chaos, it's a board. Anyway, yeah, cool. And thank you very much for the compliments there, Prey. And We're Not Wizards is the best show if you want to hear a variety of people and, let's call it, rambling interviews. If you want to hear rambling interviews, that is the best show. I would be tempted to say Pointless Parrot. The one thing that Pointless Parrot has going for it is that Pointless Parrot is currently updating, but We're Not Wizards, there's just a giant backlog of content, like 400 episodes. That is that. Then I talked about this brilliant comic. I would recommend it to everyone. Usagi Yojimbo, Return of the Black Soul. Yep, great way to get started in the series. You almost certainly don't want to start with number 1, New Adventures of Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, it's okay. I might get rid of it, although I do really love Scott McCloud and it's just joyful. But yeah, if you see it, check it out. It is ridiculous. But I'm biased because I knew Scott McCloud from Understanding Comics, Reinventing Comics, Making Comics, and the one book that is not here, which is Zot. Zot is really, really good. So yeah, that we also had a brief talk about not everything needs to be new information for it to be useful. Sometimes just restating things that we are already aware of can be really useful. Sometimes just reminding us of these things. And that is my recap of everything. So, I hope you have a good night, Pray, and I want to tell everybody that I am running myself a game jam on the February 16th to 13th of February. And so if you're interested in that, check out my Discord, join that, and say hello, and I will be putting in the details maybe later today, maybe tomorrow, depending on how today goes. I'm not willing to make massive commitments at this point. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, lots of love. I hope you sleep well, and we've already heard that a couple of our going to call you lovely guests from the chat are going to sleep. And I want to say thank you, everyone. You've all been amazing. And also thank you to the people who've made these podcasts and written these books and given me entertainment and, especially Stan Sakai. Stan Sakai, I just cannot get over how much I love Stan Sakai's work. Yeah, seriously, Usagi Ojimbo. I seriously cannot get over it. I seriously recommended. But yeah, thank you everyone. You're all wonderful. And thank you for everyone listening to me. It's been lovely meeting you. Pray, thank you for joining in. Rob, thank you for being here and being the moderator and doing moderating and helping me a wee bit. Thank you, CD, for popping in earlier. Thank you, everyone else who's just maybe been lurking. And Jay Samurai, if you're still there. I'm really sorry that I'm confused about what. Yeah, I don't know if it's me confused, but yeah. And so, yeah, as I say, like, thank you, everyone. You've been so lovely. And so now we go to we carry on our wrap up. This wrap up is so slow. Over to you. What are you up to? You can share anything you want to. So, is there anything that you are wanting to try to achieve today? Anything that you are looking forward to? Anything that's somewhat serious or anything that's frivolous? That whatever it is, whether it's hopes, ambitions, or just, hey, I'm going to have a good meal. And my sibling is going to cook tonight. We're going to have haggis, which I'm looking forward to. We're going to have neeps and tatsies, of course. And so, yeah, that should be good. What else? I might have a wee bit of breakfast / lunch in a wee bit. I don't know when. My hopes and ambitions, I'm going to give the detail for the game jam. I'm going to send an email to Richard Denning about UK Games Expo because I already sent one, but I've got more information to kind of, that's just business. Why do I keep putting inverted commas? I mean, look, UK Games Expo, I've been thinking about it, and I've been thinking that 2021, I don't see this as being a viable business decision, but I see it very much as being a viable personal, what's the word I'm looking for? So, I had, a while back, I decided that the whimsy budget, okay? So I've got a bit of a whimsy budget, right? And sometimes you need to do things for whimsy because otherwise, why on earth are you even doing this kind of work? You need to keep it fun. So people who saw me at Aircon might be aware of what my whimsy budget for 2020 was spent on. And so I don't want to spoil the surprise. In case there is a convention, the next time that there's a convention in the UK, you will see what I spent £500 on. That was my whimsy budget for that year. The previous year, 2019, I spent my whimsy budget on having a wall for the cats. I actually had to pay for that walling. And this year, if I'm being honest, just going to UK Games Expo, let's pretend that there is a... Realistically, we're not going to get to normal convention, but we might be getting a reduced contact convention where you need to be staying far away from other people. They have to expand the corridors. They need to charge the punters a bit more, but they're also going to reduce the price for the exhibitors, which to me makes a lot of sense because exhibitors are going to see fewer punters. And so given that situation, I might be spending a wee bit less, downgrading the space, but I can't. It has to be something ultimately that I feel capable of running myself because I can't encourage and require that anybody else joins me because, and I don't know if it's, anyway. But, Pray, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep you, like, but and it's all good to me. It's lovely to meet you as well. Looking forward to the warmth. It is -10 outside. Wow. Oh, Celsius. Yeah. So at least here it is. I was told by a parent that it was -6 at some points last night. But yep. I am there. That's why I'm moving to Thailand. So, yep. What else are we up to? Let me know if you have anything else that you're up to. I've already told you about my streams. I've asked you, please share, spread the word, and we are going to raid. Yep, in a wee bit, I will do the whole exclamation mark, and I've already mentioned the game jam, and so please join my Discord. And oh, I might, just because if so socials, yeah, there we go. So if you want to have more clickable things, then there we go. You can check out all those things. And so, yeah, gets involved in the Discord. But that, other than raiding and checking out who is what's going on? Okay. Oh, dude, Kalinsky. It's Kalinsky. Okay. Raid. It's Kalinsky. Publisher. So this person that I'm directing you to, It's Kalinsky on Twitch, is all about guitar music, playing original songs, some covers, and it's joyful, and are a lovely person. And so thank you very much. And that brings me to the genuine end. Unless anyone has anything else to say, feel free to shout it out, but it is bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, bye, everyone. And thank you very much to me for joining that. And yeah, feel free to share stuff and to share cool stuff, share links or whatever. And as we're going, feel free to do that. And bye, everyone. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.